Okay, so I'd like to welcome Chris McCarthy, who's going to share with us about research projects and opportunities at a two-year college.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, I'm a professor at Borough Manhattan Community College, which is part of the City University of New York. And my slides aren't advancing, of course. Okay, there it goes. And there's a picture of it taken from the Hudson River. And the math department is somewhere like around here. And this is the front of the building. And we're a big college, I think. We have like 27,000 students or more, and a lot of associate degree programs. There are more than 10,000 students in adult and continuing education programs. Students come from over 145 countries. We have about 540 full-time faculty and at least 75 in the math department. When I started there, I kind of knew everyone in the math department. And now there's like people who I mean, I know them, but it's like, who are these people? There's like, it's just so big. Like when we meet, we fill up a gigantically large room. And you feel almost like you're going to a church meeting or something. There's so many people in the math department. So the 75 plus, that's just full time. And then we have like, I guess like an uncountable number of adjuncts. We're a pretty big school. We're in Lower Manhattan, and we're right on the Hudson River, just north of the World Trade Center. And when the World Trade Center got hit in 2001 on 9/11, part of the some of the World Trade Center, or some of the buildings around the World Trade Center, fell on one of our buildings and damaged it. And this is a picture taken from that building that was damaged, or the replacement building, actually. You can see the World Trade Center site in the background when they were still building I guess the Freedom Towers. Okay. And that's our new building. And on the right, you can see the memorial lights. On 9/11, they have these bright lights that they shine up into the sky, and you get a really nice view of them. One 9/11 anniversary, there was some sort of issue with the bulbs, and I was teaching at the time. You could hear them sort of crackling or popping or something. It was strange. Okay, all right. So, so what are the various undergraduate research programs? We have something called the BMCC Foundation Fund for Undergraduate Research. We have C-STEP. We have the CUNY Research Scholars Program, which is really a wonderful program where the students get paid about $5,000 or so to work with a mentor, and the mentor gets paid $1,000. I always think it's kind of like backwards a little bit, but it's nice that the students get paid money, and I'm always involved in that, and I always have one or two students a year. We have something called the Lsamp Program. We have, for a while there, we had something called the MCIP RISE grant, and I was participating in it. And I would mentor students in that. And then there's STEP for high school students. We're right down the block from Stuyvesant High School, or they're down the block from us. And this is one of the two premier high schools in New York City for just like really, really super smart kids. And every once in a while, some of them will look to us for a mentor. And maybe just before the pandemic hit, I had this sophomore in high school, and she was just really, really smart. And she was like taking differential equations. She was only a sophomore in high school. And I was just very impressed by her. And then another thing that we have is we have something called the BMCC Honors Program, which is really nice. No one gets paid any money, but the students, they work with a mentor on an honors project, which is sort of like a fancy homework project. And then at the end of the semester, what they do is they give a presentation and they write a short paper on it. And that's just a nice, cute little program that I like to do with students. I teach at a community college, and we have some really spectacularly good students. The majority of the students, they're maybe not as academically focused. They're very often, they're more interested in their life outside of college. But we do have some very academically accomplished students who are just really, really as good as anyone, any university in the world. We just have some spectacularly smart students. And I very often will work with them. Okay. And we got a lot of grant money. We're very successful at that. We're constantly getting these various NSF grants and things like that. Right now, I'm participating in one of these grants having to do with establishing a neuropsychology track in our psychology program. And we won an NSF grant for that, and I'm doing the mathematical end of it. Okay. And here's another grant we won on dark matter. And we have this symposium, which is really fun every year. I'll let you watch this video for a minute or two.
This is an event that involves the entire BMCC community. All of our students are involved to come see the work that the students have done. The researchers have done, all of our faculty involved. We have people judging the events from all over the college. It is probably one of the largest events at the college and is definitely a community building event at BMCC.
And I'm glad today my 3 students are presenting 3 different researches in the area of biomedical engineering. They try to weld unweldable materials. And I believe that every student should be involved in the research.
So that's what our BARS symposium. It stands for something like student research or something. I forget what it stands for. And it's really one of my favorite days at our college. And you get to see what all our student researchers are working on. They have this poster session, and it's just really wonderful. There, I go and I listen to the students talking, and they're enthusiastic, and I just really like it. It's just such a wonderful experience. And I always get jealous, like, oh my God, the student's working on something so interesting. I would really like to work on that. And then there'll be another student working on something else. And it's like really exciting. And it's just a nice thing. And so if your college doesn't have one of these things, it's like a good thing to sort of maybe have. I just really like it. There's a lot of non-BMCC research opportunities. The national labs and institutes are a great place for students to get a summer research experience. I get a lot of emails from these various national labs and stuff, and they're always looking for students to work in their summer research programs and so on. So it's a good thing to sort of, I don't know, be a part of, so that you can sort of direct some of your students into these programs. Another thing is something called the Center for Undergraduate Research in Math, and they won a big NSF grant. It's not us, this is some other people. So some of them are from CUNY actually, but they weren't our campus. And what they do is then they took their grant and then they divvy it up into little pieces, and they give out sort of micro grants of, I don't know, $5,000 to $10,000 or something. And I've applied for those and I've never gotten one of them. So I'm like a little bit annoyed at them, but it's a really good thing also. I don't know if it's still in existence, but you can apply, and if you can look it up online, and if they're still there, it's worthwhile. They do some really interesting stuff. Okay. And of course, there's Simeo that I don't really have to mention how wonderful they are for resources. And so the question pops up, what is undergraduate research in math at a 2-year college? And here's the thing, original research results and deep technical mathematics typically requires a lot of training. That is what PhD programs are for. So if you are expecting your students, even if they're absolutely brilliant students in math, they're not going to be able to do cutting edge math research with you. At least very few of them are. But the students can have the what I call the research experience. And this is open-ended problems with no single correct answer. They can read a research article or learn about what the professor's research is, and then reproduce, explain, help write up the results. That's what I often do, is that I'll be working on some sort of a research project, and I'll have the students sort of tag along and follow along with what I'm doing, and then I'll maybe have them work on some of the data, or to do some of the come up with some ideas for it. And sometimes they come up with really, really good ideas, and then your research goes off in another direction. So they actually do participate. They can always write computer code. Some of my students are really, really great coders. A lot of them have, not a lot, but some have gone on and they're working for Amazon and Google and stuff like that. There's always, almost everything I do involves modeling various phenomena. And we can, as we get the model, we can test the model, and then we can tweak it, and we can apply the model to something physical, and then check to see whether or not the data matches what the model is predicting, and the students can be sort of involved in that. Also, the students get exposure to grant writing, conference presentations, networking, all good things. And of course, they're just sort of, they can discuss with the professor his or her research. And it's really sort of about making them sort of just part of a sort of a research group. And that's just a good thing. And I always tell the students that the most important thing is like is being part of various groups, because that's where a lot of work gets done. And if you know the right people, this can help your career. And you learn things, you make friends. So I always tell them it's good to be parts of these various research groups or labs and stuff like that. So what are the problems with undergraduate research? Well, the one big problem is how to choose research assistants. Do you go by GPA, enthusiasm, knowing the student from previous classes? It's really difficult, I think, to choose a good research assistant. It's not always the highest GPA. I would say the most important thing is enthusiasm. I'd much rather work with a student who's maybe not the greatest technical student at math, but they really are enthusiastic about the project. So I would say for me, enthusiasm is like the most important thing. But usually the students I work with, their GPAs are close to 4. But there'll be like maybe 10 students who want to work with me, and it'll be like, who do I choose? And so it's usually I go by who seems to be, the most enthusiastic, not always the highest GPA. There's always the problem of classwork versus research versus jobs versus friends and family. When I was an undergraduate and I used to get picked up to do research projects by the professors, and that was always an issue. It's like, do I work on the research project or do I do my homework? And very often I would end up, doing my homework because I wanted to get a good grade. And then I always feel guilty because, I was getting paid to do the work, with the professor. But like I realized, that the grade's very important, and I can't, fail, do bad in the class because I'm like working on an interesting research project. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes I would spend too much time doing the research as an undergraduate, and the research would go nicely, but then maybe my grades would suffer. So I really can understand students who sort of have this dilemma of where they should divide up their time. Another problem is your research can be important to you, but it may not be so important to your undergraduate research assistant. I mean, I really maybe care about what I'm doing, but the student, after playing around with it, realizes it's not for them, and they lose their enthusiasm. And then, of course, there's always a problem. Students may not know enough math, and what might take me a couple of minutes to figure out might take the students half a semester. And so it's important to realize that they're just starting out, and you have to be very gentle with them. You can't really, expect them to move at the same speed you could, or maybe a graduate student. So you have to, realize they're just starting out and be very gentle with them. So be realistic. Your research assistants are just beginners. So a good experience is more important than getting good results. That's what I believe completely, that a good experience for them is much more important than getting good results, that they feel sort of happy with the experience and that they have sort of a good time. That's how I approach things. Okay, let's see, how am I doing for time? Okay, so what are the benefits? Well, the students almost always enjoy it. I keep in touch with my students, and it's always nice, I have students from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and, I'll call them up or I'll email them. They'll be, oh, hi, professor, how are you doing? I remember the project we were working on. And the students, they will remember the research that they do with you. They're not going to remember like a differentiation technique, but they're going to remember, like solving some sort of research problem or working on it. It just stays with them, I think, for the rest of their lives, basically. I know that's how it is with me, that I remember all the research projects I worked on as an undergraduate. I don't necessarily remember anything I learned in the classroom. The students learn how to do research open-ended problems, not just book problems. It helps students find out what they really want to do, which is important. Maybe what happens is they work on a project and they realize they hate math, they hate engineering, they hate science, and they want to go work on Wall Street or something. And that's important. Sometimes it's important to know what you don't like, not necessarily what you do like. So I think that's an important thing. And the students gain confidence, pride, a chance to show off, and they often get paid for it. students are all different, obviously. Different things work for different students. Some of them really love to show off, others are shy. You know, they're all different, and it's all nice to work with, and they get different things out of it. And I always like the different personalities of the students. You know, some are very artistic, some are just much more down to earth. And it's always sort of funny when I have multiple students and you have one student who might be very, very artistic and the other one is just very, very practical, down to earth. And the artistic one wants to make everything look pretty and nice. And the down to earth one is like, Jesus, I don't care what color we make the post-it, let's just get it done. And I always think it's kind of fun to watch the interaction. And the experience looks great on their CV. And I tell the students that the way the world works is that if you do work on one of these projects, it makes your CV look better. And then you get a chance maybe to do something else, which will make your CV look even better. And then this is how students get sort of separated out. And so that it's sort of like money comes to money. And so the research experience, even if nothing else, it can help you get a scholarship or it can help you get a job later on, maybe. So it's really nice for their CV. And what are the benefits for the professors? Well, the professor almost always enjoys it. It looks good on the CV, of course, for the professor. Sometimes the students will do useful work for the professor. It's absolutely true. And having students is motivating. And I always feel proud of my students. I really, really do. I really feel proud of them. And I just want them to succeed and to do well. It's just really a nice experience for me. And I remember all the students that I mentor, every single one of them. I don't remember the students in my classes as much, but the ones that I mentor, I remember them. So here's like a collection of some of the projects that I've worked on with students. And let's see how much time I have. Okay. And most of the students I work with, I take from my differential equations class. And so if you're taking differential equations at a two-year college, usually means you're pretty good in math because you're really only a sophomore, basically. Okay. So this is Nanda, and she did a project on Euler and the Runge-Kutta methods. And she's now current, as of 2018, she was working with New York City Office of Actuary, designing and preserving pension plans for city employees. And I wrote to her about like her research experience years after she did it. And she wrote back and she told me I would recommend everyone who has a chance to take that opportunity and to make the best out of it. Not only you learn more than just what the syllabus covers, but you also have a competitive advantage when it comes to applications for graduate programs. That's like unprompted. I just said, write back to me a little bit about your research experience with me. So she did something with Runge-Kutta, which is a numerical method of solving differential equations. Evgeny Goldstein, we did something with the three-body problem, and he's now working as a structural engineer for Sikorsky Aircraft, which is a part of Lockheed Martin. And what we did was we did the three-body problem and numerical solutions. The three-body problems is you have like three planets or three things orbiting each other, and where's the what are the orbits going to look like? Okay. All right. So he said that regarding the research experience, I think it is a great way to learn to think out of the box and to apply mathematics to discipline to solving engineering problems. He had like a twin brother. I could never tell them apart. It was kind of cute. Okay. This is Pete Weeks, and we did this was an honors program, not so much a research thing. And it was like, what's a catenary? And a catenary is just like you take a chain and you hang it and you get that thing that looks like a parabola, and that's the catenary. And we did a project on that. And that chain is, he stole it from his sister or borrowed it from his sister. And we used graph paper, and then you trace out the chain, and then you can see what the model predicts, and you can then compare it to the data that you get from it. And he's working on building these gigantic stadiums. He's working for an engineering company that does that. And this is Greta Rodriguez, and he won an NYU mathematics full scholarship in 2016. Right now he's an adjunct lecturer in math at our school, and he wants to get a PhD in math. And he's just a really cool kid. I mean, he's an adult, but to me, he's a kid. And we worked on ecological models. And it was sad. He got all these scholarships to these various universities, but he stayed in New York City to take care of his mom, who wasn't doing so well. So that's the type of guy he is. I had a tremendous amount of respect for him. That they put family first. And this is Youngwook Choi, who I always smile when I think about his project right now. He's probably graduated from Columbia as with a degree in statistics, and his project was mathematics in our daily lives. And this is a Korean kid, and he could barely speak English, but he was brave. He wanted to do the honors project, and he didn't know that much math. He was just coming out of a pre-calculus class, and this is like very unusual for me to take a student from pre-calculus and to work with them. But he wanted to work with me, and I was like, okay. And so he did a very gentle project, like mathematics in our daily lives. And one of the things that he sort of investigated is like, why are some things circles? In other words, like why are manhole covers circles? And it was like this very gentle talk he gave at the end of the semester to the faculty. And this is like faculty that's drawn from different departments, not just math. And they really loved his talk because they understood what he was talking about. Whereas usually when my students talk in front of the faculty drawn from the different departments, they don't understand anything because they're not mathematicians. And they were like all very happy. And they thought this was like the best of my students ever. Okay, let's see, how am I doing for time? Okay, this is a interesting story. These three students are all Korean, and they came to me and they wanted to do research with me, but I didn't have any money. Usually I don't do research with, very often I won't do research with students unless I can give them some money, some support, or some sort of an official research project. But they really want to work with me. So I said, okay, you can work with me as an independent researcher. The reason why I prefer having them be part of a program is because then on their CV, they can put they were in this particular program. Whereas if they just work with me as an independent researcher, I don't know if it looks as good. But anyway, they really want to work with me. And one of them had been working with some professor doing something in absorption studies and in the chemistry department. And so I was talking to her, and then these other three students were all they traveled as a group basically. And so she told me about her research, and then I talked to the chemistry professor and asked if I could help out as well on that. And he said, yeah. And so I developed a mathematical model to sort of explain the results we were getting. And so that was kind of fun, where it was sort of a real research project where I came up with some sort of a model in chemistry, which is something I didn't know anything really about until I started playing around with it. Okay. All right, and I'm kind of running out of time, so I'm going to sort of skip a little bit. This is also involving absorption kinetics. And oh, this Susan Blackburn, she was one of these incredible students. She ended up working on the project to measure the gravitational waves. And I remember like talking to her and telling, before as she was going into the gravitational wave experiments, saying, you might not find anything. And she's like, oh, no, we're going to find something. And I'm like, oh, it's just theoretical at this point. And she's like, no, we're going to find it. So she was in Europe working on that actually. And now she's at Columbia, I think, getting a PhD in mathematics. I think she switched out of physics, but she's a very interesting story. All right, this is one of my favorites. She did a bridge. She helped to build the new Kosciuszko Bridge. Let's see. This is biological clocks, mathematical models of circadian rhythms. Just this brilliant guy. And we did a project trying to understand something having to do with circadian rhythms in plants. Okay, and this is another one of my students, and this was an honors program, so it was just the butterfly effect, and that was sort of a cute project, but it wasn't really research type. It was just sort of an honors project. this we did something on mass spectrometry and explosive detections. It was, again, it was an honors program. It wasn't really research, but it was kind of interesting. These are two of my students, and we ended up getting a publication. We did something on simulations and mathematical models of condensation, absorption, and filters. And they both won full scholarships to North Carolina. And so this was a project that I worked with them. And I'm kind of, I think, running out of time. So maybe what I'll do is I'll stop there. This is more on the absorption model that I developed. I guess I'll stop there. I was going to talk a little bit about, let's see. So let me just sort of put in a little bit of a plug for one of the things that you might find kind of interesting. This is sort of an interesting model. This was part of a BMCC Foundation funded project, and it's kind of interesting. So this is what I came up with, something to work on to model. So you have a pipe of length L filled with bacteria, or with bacteria in it, and the antibiotics kill the bacteria at the end of the pipe. So how do you measure, how do you model this? So the bacteria are diffusing. When they reach the end of the pipe, they die because they come in contact with the bacteria. And the bacteria grow according to a say, a logistic model rather than the exponential model, because the exponential, just makes sense when the bacteria first start to grow. And so you end up getting a reaction diffusion equation. And these are really, really interesting to play around with. And this is a simple one. After I developed this particular model, I started, I liked it so much, I started looking it up. And it turns out that Ronald Fisher from statistics, he had something that was sort of similar to this, not for modeling bacteria in a pipe, but for something else. And I always get annoyed. It's like, when you have these people, they figure something out, 100 years before me. But it's just this really nice, cute little reaction diffusion model, which is something that you can throw out to your students. And you can use finite differences to numerically approximate the solution. And the really cool thing about this is there's something called a Courant number. And if that term d delta t over delta x squared is less than 0.5, the Euler method scheme is going to converge to the solution. And if you're above the 0.5, it doesn't. And I didn't realize this when I first started playing around with it. And so sometimes when I would do the numerical solution, it would work, and sometimes it wouldn't. And so I did some research into it. And then I realized that there was this Courant number thing. And over here, we can see the numerical solution, and the Courant number is under 0.5. And over here, the Courant number is over 0.5, and you don't get convergence. Over here, this is what happens if the bacteria diffuse more quickly. And over here, this is what happens if the Courant number gets a little bit bigger. And it's sort of the interesting thing with this, and I'll stop after this, is that when I first did this, I have a lot of experience using the Euler method. And so as you let delta t get smaller, you get a more accurate result. But if you let delta x get smaller, you don't get more accuracy. So if you want to get accuracy, you have to make delta t get smaller much more quickly than delta x gets small. That's sort of the takeaway. It's kind of cool that you get this sort of phenomena, and it's probably worth teaching to the students if they're a little bit quicker. And I guess that's sort of the end of my talk. And so please feel free to contact me. That's my email address, and I think I used up all the time. Okay. But if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Wow, that is a host of interesting problems.
Okay.
Very cool. For those that are headed to the next session, it starts in 1 minute, so you can run up to the next room. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't have time for questions per se, but yeah.
Just email me if anyone has any questions.
Right, exactly. Email Chris. That would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Toto.